that you're having in all that you do, but give us sort of a brief little journey of what it was like from, to get from there to here.
Well, thank you. I often call this the Starseed Blueprint because I'm aware that there are many other beings or levels of consciousness which have come to this particular planet during this time cycle to really assist in keeping the ascension timeline, which is sovereignty and freedom, which I call the God, Sovereign, Free triad, here and available for humanity and for this planet. So like many of us with that similar Starseed Blueprint, I think we feel a sense from very early on as youngsters, as even babies, to have certain awarenesses where we're witnessing events on the planet and not necessarily feeling like we're engaged in events on the planet. And I know that it took me a very long while to determine what was happening and trying to find a way to verbalize it and express it also outwardly, because I certainly have felt very different from the get-go. From as long as I can remember, I had felt this planet had a type of predator force and a barbarism that I was attempting to understand even as a child. And I had a lot of thoughts, even at, 5, 6 years old, having this awareness of barbarism and predator forces that didn't make sense to me even back then. And so my life has really had that in the background of having this awareness that there is something operating that is hidden that I could feel or sense, but didn't have a language at the time to really grasp it, from my human self as Lisa, but that there was this other aspect of me that was aware of that. So I spent my early years feeling, in fact, very disconnected from planet Earth and wondering what my role was or is on planet Earth. And during that time, I've learned now subsequently that I was here to study and really choose Earth as a case study to develop an accurate assessment of where the architecture went wrong in the consciousness fields and what had created certain outcomes and probabilities in the timelines. And I was here to study those timelines and look in depth at the consciousness architecture or the blueprint of the fields from all of these different levels in 3D structure, such as the fact I was working in the IRS, Internal Revenue Service, as a tax, preparer, tax accountant, and business manager. And by understanding money supply and the control of it, I was able to track different levels in the architecture, which led to the larger picture of the negative alien agenda, which I understand a lot more in depth today. So I was a tax accountant for probably many years. I started as a teenager, and I had this Kundalini awakening in my 30s, which is very common in working with the archetypes of what we know as the Christ consciousness or the crystal consciousness, because there are very specific mathematical arrangements in architecture which connect to our physical bodies and biologies, which is known as a bio-spiritual expansion, meaning the biology and the spiritual self, the spiritual bodies, have an actual blueprint that work together when it's organic and operating and supposedly functioning as it should. Naturally, we can see on our planet today that is not happening in an organic way, meaning most human beings are not aware of their spiritual selves or able to have a tool or awareness to connect to that aspect of their higher self, to understand how to do that, how to open that connection and alignment, even though in the natural and organic state, without the control and suppression and enslavement, this would have been an organic part of human biology on this planet, and this is a part of what has been interfered with and interrupted, and is why there are many beings, extraterrestrials from other spaces and places of time, that have come here to inquire as to why that is occurred. Why has this transpired, and what has happened in the time field that has created this kind of damage and destruction in the organic spiritual development of the human being. So during the time of my early 30s, this is when my extraterrestrial contact began. And at that particular time, I didn't know it at the time. Through that contact, I went through what's known as a walk-in process, which was an aspect of my soul that existed in a future space-time, which was a part of something known as the Lyran and Siren councils, embodied within my physical Lisa form, and I went through a process of integration of that spiritual identity of myself that existed in a future time and space. I learned later that that was so I could understand and be more adept with understanding holographic language and understanding the template and blueprint, sort of the science behind ascension. It was that aspect of my identity that was a lot more developed in that way than, let's say, the Lisa brain, the Lisa identity in this time and space. So that was needed and necessary to get to where I am today in the continual development and teaching and learning in order to learn about teaching about the science of ascension and also learning about the healing aspects of spiritual ascension and being able to go through the process directly as an experience myself so that I would be able to help support many beings on this planet that would be doing this process through these waves of energies and frequencies that would become exposed to the planetary body. Now, we know that the negative alien agenda has attempted to prevent, subvert, misdirect people with a variety of all of the spiritual ascension information that has been given to the public. But ultimately, one thing that they cannot prevent is movement of stellar activations of frequencies that come into exposure with the planetary body. So, in effect, what they have attempted to do by damaging the planetary neural net, which is also known as the planetary brain, they've done this control of the planetary brain and control of the Stargate systems and the grid systems of our planet in order to interfere with those literally organic, energetic transmissions that occur, very much like Laura was talking about, conjunctions between Jupiter and the moon. These are things that are very hard for them to interfere with directly in terms of, huge planetoid type of bodies coming in direct alignment with our planet. They can't really stop that without creating a lot of destruction. So they attempt to interfere with that process in a variety of ways, and many of these ways, many of us who are familiar with the negative alien agenda and this level of information understand, chemtrails and the various levels of genetic modification of food and the control of natural resources, et cetera. All of this is a part of controlling that, because if the physical body and being, the biology is stunted in its nervous system or not able to connect with these certain frequencies, it keeps that being, again, suppressed or harnessed in a certain parameter of consciousness. And that's really what the negative alien game is here. So going through this process directly, going through this process directly was really getting to the meat and potatoes of understanding the negative alien agenda on our planet, and it's clear my whole life has been geared towards that and for that purpose.
Wonderful. Wow, that's such an amazing answer.